business. The business is dead. And it's all, and now with inflation hitting, well, I got to fill up my car, $88? I mean, I could afford it, but how about these people that can't? And that's why you're going to see the office occupancy rate continue to go down. This is going to be the biggest real estate crisis ever documented in modern history. And again, it's the new world. Part of it makes a lot of sense. I mean, here we are, we're Zoomed together. I'm not in, back in the day, I'd go down,
You came to Wall Street.
Right. So it's a different world now. So the implications of this are going to be far-reaching. But again, when all else fails, they take you to war.
What Gerald Celente said may sound alarmist, but it certainly is not without foundation. Military drills are ongoing in Taiwan, and even New York City has run an exercise in case of nuclear attack. The world has been in a state of alert for a while now, but perhaps this time something big is coming. How did we get to this place? We can try and answer this question from an economic perspective. The current economic crisis has been in the making for decades, with the advent of the new monetary order of fiat currency in the 1970s, the expansion of the financial system globally throughout the 80s and 90s, and with the massive crisis of 2008, which quite literally broke central banks' ability to adjust monetary policy appropriately. All of these developments were placed on steroids during 2020, when every single economic and financial inefficiency was amplified and saw other things like decades-high inflation rates added to it. An interesting phenomenon in particular has been happening in the labor market, which has witnessed what the economists have called the Great Resignation. People are quitting their jobs at an alarming rate, either to seek better opportunities or because the government support is so attractive that they don't have to work. As Celente pointed out, for some workers it may be too expensive to even drive to their jobs, and therefore, some are forced to quit because they can't afford to work. This is the level of economic absurdity we are witnessing. If more people are quitting or are not being able to drive to their office jobs, then the occupancy rate, which measures how busy an office building is, goes down. When this rate goes down, the investment returns on these pieces of real estate also goes down, leading to an increasing potential of defaults that can ripple through the economy. The New York Times reported that New York City faces a potential fiscal crisis due to a possible $10 billion budget deficit, driven in part by the drop in commercial office occupancy. They say the city's commercial office market is on the precipice of a potential work-from-home abyss that hurts tax revenues and reduces job creation for many lower-paid service workers in restaurants, building services, and other jobs. America is not the only part of the developed world that is being hard hit by what Jamie Dimon termed an economic hurricane. The Central Bank of Australia recently announced that it is basically bust. Asia Times reported that Australia's Reserve Bank has just reported a loss of $37 billion, $24.1 billion in the US, the biggest in its history, and it says it will be unable to pay the government dividends for some time. Meanwhile, Europe and America are fighting higher inflation from de-established energy markets. What can policymakers do? Well, quite simply to raise interest rates. The only issue is that this sort of monetary tightening adds a lot of pain to the economy and the financial markets. Everything points to a massive downturn in the making.
The Fed always has a trade-off between, you got to understand this, they have a trade-off between strengthening the economy and inflation, because when they put out more money in credit, it creates a lot more spending. So what you basically have is items that become expensive, and then they take money away, right? They take money away, they make it more expensive. And so fighting inflation has a cost. You hear a lot like they say, okay, we'll raise interest rates and we'll fight inflation. And they don't talk about the pain that also comes from that. Right. So what they will do is balance it. It will go on until the economic pain is greater than the inflation pain. They will tighten monetary policy and take away credit until the economic pain is greater than the inflation pain. Now we play the game of what level will that be?
That level is already here with us. The fact that the wealthier strata of society are not feeling it, it does not mean that everything is still fine in the economy. Beneath the seeming stability so far, there lurks massive inefficiencies created through decades of misallocation of capital as a result of bad monetary and fiscal policies. For example, the number of zombie companies in the US has skyrocketed. Zombie companies are uncompetitive businesses that need a bailout to operate successfully, or indebted companies that are only able to repay interest on their debts, interest cover ratio of 1 or less. Such companies generate only enough cash flow to pay the interest on the debt and are unable to reduce the actual principal amount. Therefore, they do not have excess cash or capacity and are stagnant, which means they are too weak to invest or grow. This is not a US-centric phenomenon, however. Hong Kong is also witnessing it, with 1 in 5 Hong Kong-listed companies not earning enough to pay the soaring interest on their debts. South China Morning Post reported on September 24th that 462 Hong Kong-listed companies qualify as zombies, and 266 have been in these dire straits for 3 years running. What does this mean? Putting it bluntly, it means that something is dead wrong in the economy. Such businesses shouldn't be able to multiply in numbers, given that they can barely operate. The fact that they proliferated is a sign of bad policies that enabled them to do so.
I said from the beginning is key. I've been waiting for them to get caught in their own trap. What they did was they've been stimulating ever since early 2009. And every time it slows, they just up it exponentially. They printed more money just in the last 2 years of COVID than they did in all the cumulative 13 years before that. So they've been escalating stimulus. The problem is they overreacted so much to COVID, which to me you don't need to overreact to. Everybody can understand that you get a huge virus that makes a lot of people sick and closes down some businesses, that the economy is going to slow. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with the economy and somebody made a mistake. It's just a natural event. No, they know they have to keep the economy going no matter what. So they overreacted. $10 trillion of stimulus in 2 years, 50% of GDP, to the point now that they have to tighten. They force themselves in a tightening cycle, and the difference between me and the government here is I'm saying the economy is so weak that this tightening is going to fail faster than they think. This tightening is not going to last long.
When the massive default is going to come, and it will come, what will happen then? Social unrest, and then, as Celente stated, war. Hedge fund manager Ray Dalio has already been preparing for a scenario where there is military conflict between great powers, such as the US and China.
And if we had a military war, God help us, because of the capacity in all different new ways to inflict harm on each other. But anyway, that's that. If you don't have that military war, you'll have the competition between those other kinds of wars, and whoever is strongest in those areas will win.
Dalio was referring to economic war, technological war, and information war when he said that we might have a competition between those kinds of wars, if the world does not see yet another military war. It is a bit too late to rule out military conflict, given what is happening in Eastern Europe. What the future may hold is uncertain. However, one thing is clear: the world is changing fast. It is more chaotic, more volatile. To stay on top of current events, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel. As always, thank you for watching, and we will see you in the next video.